Scientific Marriage Preface. Wallace D. Wattles. I have put into this little book the result of many years of patient study, practice and experiment. There is nothing in it that has not been proved to be true. The object has been to put the most profound and mighty truths in such plain and simple language that men and women of the common people, God bless them, may understand it all, and find help, comfort and happiness. The knowledge that is given here has been of inestimable value to me, and if you study it well it will help you. Hoping you will do so, I am, yours fraternally, Wallace D. Wattles. Scientific Marriage. Chapter 1. Some Basic Truths. Wallace D. Wattles. There exists in the universe a propagative power, or principle, from which every living thing springs. This propagative power is the creative energy, or life force, of the universe. The natural world receives a continual inflow of life from it, which is received by all organisms according to their form. In the plant world this energy is manifested simply as life and reproductive power, without sense. In the animal world it becomes conscious and sentient life, and in man it is not only conscious and sentient but God-conscious, knowing good from evil. But in all these kingdoms, in man, animal and plant, the life is the same, and comes from the same source. There is only one life, one God and Father of all, in whom we all live and move and are, and this propagative principle has nothing of evil in it, because it is from the infinite wisdom, the source of all things. It is from the eternal, it is the eternal life and is therefore essential good. The moving principle in all creation was and is the love and goodness of God. All things were made by good, and for good. The propagative, creative or reproductive principle in man, animal and plant is a continuation or extension of the divine energy which created and maintains all things. Every birth is simply a continuation of the work of creation, performed by the same power. The reproductive principle is the vivifying principle of the universe. It is essential life, essential wisdom, essential love, essential good. Now, in creating, producing and reproducing, good works in an orderly fashion, and according to certain fixed rules or laws, and these rules, the laws of the action of good, constitute truth. Truth is the channel through which the creative power of good manifests itself. Good is the propagative, truth the forth-bringing principle. Good is the male principle from which the life germ springs, truth is the female principle, which receives the life from good and shapes, organizes and brings it forth. And the form of the organism will depend on the truth. Plant truth organizes a plant from the life germ, animal truth an animal, and human truth a child. The life is always the same, and from the same source. The difference in manifestation depends upon the difference in the truth that is shown by the life. There is only one good. All things are born of the union or marriage of good and truth. Life is always the same, and from the same source and is always perfect, and when the life works through perfect truth the resulting organism is perfect. Imperfect organisms are the result of deviation from truth. Thus, if a plant is imperfect, it is because, from some accident, plant truth has been violated in its growth. So also in the animal world. All distorted, imperfect or monstrous forms of organic life are perversions of the truth. They are untruths. In the plant and animal world defects, except from accident, are rare because reproduction is mostly automatic and instinctive. Mental power and the knowledge of good and evil do not appear as factors. Reason and God consciousness are not present, and so the offspring of plants and animals are seldom perverted by the errors of the parents. Because plants and animals are generally in the truth, or living in accord with the laws of life for their kind, we have plants and animals, generally speaking, perfect after their kind. Very little distorted, sickly or unhappy life is found in these kingdoms, except from accident, or the interference of man. The young animal is a product of the universal mind. In the propagation of the human race the higher elements of reason and God consciousness are to be taken into consideration. The child is the product of the individual minds of the parents, and in proportion as those minds are full of evil and error, we have a distorted, imperfect and sickly life. All that we need to bring forth, and to retain perfect life is to know and do the truth. Knowing and doing the truth constitutes salvation. That is why Jesus said to Pilate, "To this end was I born, and for this purpose came I into the world, that I should bear witness to the truth." A lost world is a world that has lost the truth about life. Normal, healthy, and consequently happy life is only born of the union of good and truth. Scientific Marriage Chapter 2, Sex Love. Wallace D. Wattles. In marriages on the animal plane neither good nor truth are considered. Sex love brings the pair together, and holds them united until the reproductive purpose is accomplished. Sex love is general, or is to all of the opposite sex, generally promiscuous, but sometimes choosing a mate to be retained for a more or less protracted period. Men and women have sex love as well as animals, and very many marriages are made on this plane. Most of these are, to a greater or less extent, failures, because sex love in the human race is no more lasting than among the animals. The pair who are so united will get tired of one another, or one will tire of the other, or be attracted elsewhere. If a majority of our marriages are to continue to be made on this plane, we ought to repeal all our marriage laws, and let people choose their mates as freely and as often as they please. It is useless folly to legislate for animals in regard to the sex relation. Animals cannot change their natural order of reproduction by enacting laws. But if men and women are capable of union on a higher plane than that of sex love, then we ought to make a scientific study of this possibility and teach the truth concerning it to all. That is what I propose to do in this little book. There are 3 kinds of marriage common among us. They are as follows: commercial marriage, or marrying for a home, or for advantage or convenience; sex love marriage, and unions made from true marriage love. This last is where we rise above what is possible with the animals. Marriage love is where all that is good in a man is attracted by truth in a woman, and all that is true in a woman is attracted by good in a man. A couple so attracted are united for eternity, and that is the only true marriage. It is the law of human association that every real marriage must be a union of good and truth, and it is because we disregard this law in making marriages that we have to annul so many of them in the courts. If you are unhappily married, remember that the only way to reach a happy union is by uniting the husband's good to the wife's truth. These 2 principles, the propagative and the forthbringing, eternally attract each other. As there is good in every man and truth in every woman, it follows that happiness is possible to all. Unhappy people should renounce, as far as possible, all evil and untruth. They must remember that there is absolutely nothing that can permanently unite them but good and truth. No woman ever really and permanently loves anything but good in a man. No man ever really and permanently loves anything but truth in a woman. Every real marriage is a repetition of the creation, and exhibits the same laws in action. The first essential in forming happy marriages is, therefore, a knowledge of the laws which govern the union of good and truth. Real marriage is a union of good and truth. Good is not a principle of matter, and does not enter into the unions and combinations of matter. Neither good nor truth can be perceived by matter. As sound does not exist without an ear to hear it, so good and truth do not exist without a mind to perceive them. They are mental principles, not physical, and the marriage of good and truth is not in the union of bodies, but of minds. Marriage on the animal plane means that 2 sentient bodies are united for the purpose of experiencing the pleasure of procreation, and of bringing forth other bodies. Marriage on the human plane means that 2 minds are united, for their own unfoldment and the fulfillment of their eternal destiny, and to intelligently form, from themselves, other minds. And that the propagative union in the human race is really mental and governed by mental law is apparent not only by logical deduction, but from the facts in the case. If the propagative mental principle good, by union with the forthbringing mental principle truth, has offspring, that offspring must be mentally conceived and shaped, and its controlling principle must be mind. The offspring of animals are produced mechanically, by the sex principles, individual mind having little, if any, action in the matter. The children of most married couples are produced by the sex principles, with mind as the most powerful factor, although unconsciously and often wrongfully exerted. Children are mental productions, because the propagative and forth-bringing principles are mental, not physical. In the procreation of a child, the life principle or germ of propagative life comes from the father. The clothing of this germ, the body of the child and all that pertains thereto, comes from the mother. As to the nature of this clothing, the sex, shape, color of hair and eyes, cranial structure, etc., all these are determined by the mind of the mother, either by independent action or by suggestion. Now, I wish to lay this down as a fundamental fact, that the mind of the mother determines the sex, physical appearance, and mental traits of the child, and is the only force which does, or can do so, and therefore we may intelligently control in these matters only by influencing the mind of the mother. The power of the mother's mind, in all the particulars cited above, is easily established by well-known facts. The marking of children by fright or strong emotion is not an uncommon occurrence. I know of one instance where a stillborn child's head bore an almost exact resemblance to that of a vicious dog which had given the mother a terrible fright, and another in which a child was given, to the most minute particulars, the facial conformation of an ape. As to the power of the mind of the mother to determine the mental characteristics of the child, it is so generally conceded that I need not enlarge upon it. The parents of Napoleon Bonaparte for 2 years previous to his birth were absorbed in the study of the military history of Europe. This formed the mind of the greatest military genius of the world. I know a man who was born shortly after the election of Abraham Lincoln, in 1860. His mother, although she never saw Lincoln, was an enthusiastic supporter and partisan of the great commoner, and the marked physical and mental resemblance of her son to Lincoln has often excited comment. Here is a still stronger proof. 16 years ago my attention was called to the birth of a child with red hair, in a family where both parents and the grandparents for 2 generations were dark-haired people. Investigation revealed the fact that the young mother had passed hours, during her pregnancy, contemplating a picture, representing a golden-haired child, which hung above the couch on which she rested a considerable part of every day. Her child, a little girl, might have passed for the original of the picture. From the study of this case I evolved the plan of suggestion described in the following chapter, which I have used with invariable success, proving the possibility of determining by suggestion the sex, color of eyes and hair, and general physical characteristics of the child, where the conditions are, to a reasonable degree, favorable. Scientific Marriage Chapter 3, How to Determine the Sex, Color of Hair, etc. In a child, Wallace D. Wattles begin as soon as it is known that pregnancy has commenced, and it is well to commence even before. Make up your mind what you desire for your next child. Secure a picture, in colors if you can, of a child which fairly represents your ideal. Hang this picture where the expectant mother will have it before her eyes continually, in the room in which she spends most of her waking hours. Let her, each time she looks at the picture, assert positively to herself, "That is my child," and concentrate her mind on the lower part of her body with the firm purpose of making her child like the picture. Let her sit often before the picture and plan for the child, holding the thought that the child represented in the picture is the one she is planning for. Let her banish from her mind all doubt as to the outcome of the experiment, and her husband and those about her should never express doubt, but always positively affirm that what she expects will come to pass. Remember that it is not what you wish or desire, but what you steadily will that comes to pass. Wishing or desiring a thing to happen does not bring it about. The wish is often accompanied by a doubt, which is the strongest of counter-suggestions. Do not say, "I wish that my child might be like that," say "it is like that," and never permit yourself to hold the thought that you are not telling the truth. Scientific Marriage Chapter 4, How to Prevent the Use of Tobacco or Liquor. Wallace D. Wattles. I use suggestion to cure men of the tobacco habit as follows. I sit in front of my subject and request him to be passive, and take the mental attitude of one who is listening, first informing him that I am going to stop his desire for tobacco in the forenoon, leaving him entirely free to use it in the afternoon of each day. Fixing my eyes on him, I repeat mentally, not audibly, You will not want tobacco in the mornings anymore. It will be repulsive to you. You will feel much better without it and you will not want it at all. This I continue for 10 minutes. And after 2 or 3 sittings the man finds that he does not care for tobacco in the forenoon. I leave him free to use it if he pleases, only asking him not to take it unless he is sure that he really desires it. After the desire is stopped in the forenoon, it is eliminated in the afternoon and evening, successively, by the same method. The expectant mother may take similar means with her unborn child. Let her speak to the babe in her womb exactly as if it could hear and understand her. You will never like tobacco. It will always be repulsive to you. And let her cultivate, and hold in her own mind a strong distaste for tobacco, with the faith that the child will feel concerning it exactly as she does. Not the wish, remember, but the will. In all the above, if the mother can have an occasional sitting with someone experienced in suggestion, who can give her the mental assurance that her child will be as she desires, it will be the greatest possible aid in bringing the desired results. This is the greatest of all fields for the use of suggestion. Probably, in our present state of knowledge, it is not best to go too minutely into particulars informing the mental bent of the child. The time will come when we shall bring into the world at will a poet, an artist, an orator, or a mechanic, but for the present it is best only to look to the formation of character in general. Let the mother keep her mind in the desire for truth, let her hold to that which is right, and good and beautiful in all her thoughts, and let all around her assist her in doing so. To force sordid thoughts or low ideals upon the attention of a pregnant woman is a crime. She ought not to be worried about financial matters. She ought neither to give all her time to pleasure nor be debarred from company and enjoyment. She ought not to pursue any one line of mental or physical activity to excess, but to live a well-rounded mental and physical life, above all, trying to be true in all things, and holding fast to a love of and desire for the truth. Do not be afraid to try to make your unborn children as you would like to have them mentally and physically. Do not fear lest your ignorance should lead you into error and produce disastrous results. If your purposes are right and the desire of your heart is for what is good and true, nature is on your side and God is with you. You cannot possibly harm your unborn children by trying, through the power of thought, to make them good and strong, wise and beautiful. In your work of love, use all the power God has given you, never faltering in your trust in Him, and success beyond anything I have predicted will come to you. Scientific Marriage Chapter 5, Simple Instructions for Pregnant Women. Wallace D. Wattles. If you suffer from nausea and vomiting during the first few weeks, do not be afraid to go without eating. Never force food into the stomach, at this time. Against its protest, eat only 1 meal a day, and if you are not hungry at mealtime, do not eat at all. You will not starve. When nature is ready for food, she will let you know, and you will have no trouble with it. During the first weeks of pregnancy, little or no food is required. Everything is at a standstill while a change in the entire order of the system is being made. When the stomach rejects food, it is a plain intimation that it is not wanted, and that there is no power to dispose of it. Do not eat breakfast at all during pregnancy, and make your supper very light. Remember that a large child, with firm, unyielding bones means a protracted and severe labor, while a smaller child whose skeleton is soft and yielding will come into the world with comparatively little effort. Eat but little meat, and only young meats such as veal, lamb, etc., because the meat of older animals contains more calcareous or bone-forming substance. Eat sparingly and use only plain, solid foods, and take every day the exercises described at the close of this book. Your child will not be too large, and will have soft and flexible bones, and will be born with little pain and effort. Do not let your mind dwell on the possibility of pain, severe sickness, or an unfavorable labor. Confidently expect an easy delivery and will to have it, and you will not be disappointed. Scientific Marriage Chapter 6, Large or Small Families. Wallace D. Wattles. A great deal of nonsense has been written of late about race suicide. Although there are many who are derelict in their duty in the matter of bringing children into the world, we need, not indiscriminate breeding, but wise and loving propagation of the race. Whether the temporal and eternal future of the race shall be one of happiness or misery depends on quality not quantity. The man and woman who bring into the world two well-born, beautiful children, healthy in mind and body, with minds predisposed toward the good and the noble, are far higher in the scale of good citizenship than the pair who have a half-dozen children, born as the accidents of lust. Pitiful indeed is the lot of the woman whose life is all subjected to and submerged in the continuous exercise of the reproductive function, and scarcely less pitiful that of the father whose life is a desperate struggle to feed, clothe and educate a progeny too numerous for his means. Still more pitiful is the case where suicidal practices are resorted to in limiting the size of the family by the murder of the unborn. Miscarriages caused by violent interference are very common. The woman who has not had one or more is an exception, and no woman is ever normal in mind or body after one such experience. The end of these things is death. Miscarriages, whether brought about by drugs or instrumental interference, by the woman herself or by her physician, howsoever skillful he may be, are progressive physical and mental suicide. What I have to say now requires demonstration by some argument. I have shown that the child is a mental product, and is formed mentally and physically by the mind of the mother. I desire now to show that conception is controlled by the mind, and that a couple who are really married, in good and truth, make a habit and have children or not as they please, and this without unnatural interference, or violation of law. It is a well-known fact that miscarriage may be caused by suggestion, that is, by the action of the mind alone. A woman who has miscarried at a certain period, say the third month, is very liable to a repetition of the occurrence at the same period in a succeeding pregnancy. There is no physical or physiological reason why she should miscarry again at that particular time. The cause is solely in the mental and subconscious association of the time with the previous miscarriage. Cases of women who have been caused to miscarry by hearing of similar occurrences in others are not rare. In the past year one have known of 2 cases where miscarriage was unmistakably caused in healthy women by suggestion alone, and in all cases where the good of the race demands that a miscarriage be procured it should be done by suggestion, because the suggestion that there will be no danger of flooding, sickness or other evil consequence may accompany the suggestion of cause, and the event be made, practically, as safe as a natural birth. Now, who can deny that the mind, which has power to cause a miscarriage, or to pervert the unborn child into a monstrosity, can prevent conception, if the power be properly directed? Consider the effect of the conscious mind upon the secretions. Think for a moment about something good to eat and your mouth begins to fill with saliva. Your mouth waters, as we say. The flow of mind into the salivary glands has caused activity and a secretion is the result. Think of something that causes the desire to weep, and the flow of mind to the lacrimal glands causes the secretion of tears. Every secretion is formed as the result of conscious or subconscious mental action. The flow of mind into any organ causes activity. If it is a secretory organ, secretion is formed as the result. The generative fluids in man or woman are secretions, and are formed by the flow of mind into the genital organs. And the activity of any organ or the formation of any secretion may be stopped by strongly interdicting the flow of mind to it. Movement of the bowels may be checked by the mind, even to causing paralysis. The flow of tears may be controlled by the will. Cases of protracted fasts, lasting from 20 to 40 days, have been common during the past few years. In all these cases a resolute inhibition of the flow of mind to the stomach stops the secretion of the digestive fluids. In like manner the formation of the secretions of the testicles or the ovaries may be controlled. It is absolutely necessary, if you are to accomplish anything along the lines I am suggesting, for you to get entirely rid of the idea of thinking of yourselves as on the same plane of power and possibility with the lower animals. And, if people have risen above the animals, it has been by coming into the knowledge and use of the power of mental control, and the extent to which we are capable of rising is measured by the extent of our ability to consciously and intelligently control our functions and activities. internal and external. That this power of control is greater than men have supposed is coming to be understood. Much study has been given to the subject of late, and many startling discoveries made, enough to give wonderful promise for the future, and to show that we are entering upon the exploration, not of a new world but of a newly discovered universe. Dr. Tanner, famous as the first man in modern times to fast for 40 days, asserts that in the beginning of a fast he always says to his stomach, "Peace, be still," and uses his willpower to bring about a state of absolute rest and cessation of all functional activity in the digestive machinery, and the result is that he is never hungry. I have conducted many people through fasts of long duration and have learned that the hunger and consequent discomfort is always exactly in proportion to the expectation of it. The person who firmly and positively uses the will to control the digestive function will fast 20 days with less discomfort than will be felt by a person who gets in a panic and does not use the will in abstaining from food for 24 hours. After a period of training in mental control, I have known people to fast 30 days who would certainly have starved to death in 10 days had they been compelled to fast without the mental training. That the digestive function is under mental control is shown by the above, and by many other facts, as, for instance, that a fright, the receipt of bad news or anything which causes strong emotion, coming after a hearty meal will often completely suspend digestion and cause severe sickness. Now, let us reason a little. Your mind is either the result of the functional activities of your body or it is not. If it is the result of functional activity, then it cannot become a cause of functional activity. The result or effect cannot cause its own cause. If mind is secreted by the brain as bile is secreted by the liver, or saliva by the salivary glands, then mind is only one of the secretions of the body and is an effect of the cause which produces all the other secretions, and therefore can have no power to control those secretions unless it can control its own cause. And if it can control its own cause, it can cause itself. Also, it will not do to say that mind controls some of the organs of the body, and that some other power controls the balance of them. That would be to make the body a battleground of contending forces, mind operating part of it and some other power operating other parts. An examination of the body shows us that all of its parts are so linked together and made interdependent on each other that we must come to the conclusion that it is a harmonious whole, operated by a single force, that there is only one kind of life in it, and that the functional actions of the brain, heart, lungs, stomach, salivary glands, testicles and ovaries are controlled by the same power. If then mind can, as has been shown, control the action of the stomach and of various other organs, causing or suspending the formation of secretions, it becomes logically certain that mind can suspend the formation of the secretions of the testicles in the male, and of the ovaries in the female. If any of the functional activities of the body may be controlled by the will, all may be, it is merely a matter of learning how. And there is no function more immediately under mental control than that of conception. The very word conceive means to form in the mind, to think. It may be well, here, to call attention to the fact that instances are not rare in which conception has been caused in supposedly barren women by suggestion. The case of Sarah, Abraham's wife, who conceived even after it had ceased to be with her after the manner of women, is not alone in history. The study of the cases recorded in the Bible in which the birth and character of children were influenced by suggestion will be interesting to those who read this book. Barrenness is frequently a matter of the mind. I know of one case in which sterility was removed by suggestion and the woman became a mother after 17 years of childless marriage. I do not say that all barrenness is due to mental condition, but I do say that the woman who is firmly convinced that she cannot have children will probably not have them until her belief is changed. The mental attitude which must be taken by the husband and wife who do not desire children will not be hard to understand by those who have followed me thus far. They must do for the generative organs exactly what the faster does for the digestive organs, viz., check the formation of secretions by withholding the mind from the thoughts which cause secretions to be formed. That the menstrual flow may be checked, or entirely suppressed by mental disturbance, anxiety or fear is a well-established fact, that it can be restored by suggestion when suppressed by these or other causes has been repeatedly demonstrated. If the mind of a woman can suppress the menstrual flow, may it not be said to logically follow that it can suppress the secretory action of the ovaries? And if a healthy woman may become barren through a belief accidentally formed, is it not certain that she may make herself so by a belief intentionally formed? Scientific Marriage Chapter 7, How to Control Conception. Wallace D. Wattles. In the first place, it is evident that this power of mental control cannot be exercised by those who are united on the plane of sex love. Sex love is the love of procreation, and the cause of all activity of the generative organs. Control is only possible to those who are united in real marriage, the union of good and truth. It is not possible to those men and women who permit their minds to dwell on sex relations, whose delight is to think and talk on the subject of sex, who listen to obscene stories and whose conversation consists largely of veiled allusions and double entendres. All such people are governed by the reproductive principle instead of governing it. Such people can no more suspend the action of the reproductive organs than a person could fast whose whole thought and conversation was of eating and things to eat. You understand that I am not asserting that the couple who do not desire children must abstain entirely from sex intercourse, but that they must abstain from the thought of sex intercourse on the procreative or sex love plane, and that the mind must be used positively to inhibit or forbid the formation of the ovum. The wife must instantly check each thought that comes on the plane of sex desire or passion. She must avoid the society of women whose conversation is of matters pertaining to the sex love. She must meet every thought that comes on that level with the positive assertion, I will not permit the egg to form in my ovaries until I am ready. The husband must maintain an exactly similar attitude in regard to himself. Out of their mutual effort to hold their minds on this higher level will come an increasing love and tenderness, of the highest order between them. By denial of the lower instincts, the husband will grow in goodness and power and the wife in truth and beauty. When they come together it will be mental, not physical love which draws them to one another, and children will only be born of that union when they will it so. A union in which reproduction is controlled by mental power is the only real human marriage. All others are mere sex associations. The physical sex unions end in the divorce court or are more or less marred by discord and unhappiness. The marriage where the union of good and truth controls the reproductive function is eternal. It is the love of heaven established on earth. These and these only are they whom God hath joined together. Man cannot put them asunder. Scientific Marriage Chapter 8, A few simple directions. Wallace D. Wattles. Hold your mind resolutely above sex thoughts. When you come together, let the attraction be the love you have for each other's goodness and truth, and with the mental assertion that children shall not be born of your union until you are ready. Remember that overindulgence leads to certain failure. Remember also that fear is a predisposing cause of conception. Banish fear absolutely from your mind. The woman who is continually worrying for fear she will become pregnant is the one most likely to do so. Do not use any of the patented contrivances, suction syringes, etc., for preventing conception. They often cause bad internal disorders, and are absolutely certain to ultimately destroy health and shorten life. After copulation, a syringe should never be immediately used. Most women can effectually cleanse the vagina by washing with the hand. Lukewarm or cold water may be used in this manner without ill effect, but not in the quantities necessarily injected by a syringe. The washing out of the vagina should be done as a sanitary measure, and for the sake of cleanliness, apart from the idea of prevention. For at least 7 days before the menstrual period, nature requires entire abstinence from sex intercourse, and at this period the idea of connection is repugnant to every normal woman. It is absolutely necessary that this demand of nature be complied with by all who wish to control reproduction. Nature has implanted in every woman a physiological and psychological repugnance to the sex relation at this time, and it is a law of her nature that she cannot retain the full measure of her wifely love for a husband who compels her to submit in violation of her feelings. No woman ought to submit to excessive demands, or to violate the psychological repugnance to intercourse which at these periods is natural to her, in the hope that by so doing she will increase her husband's love and faithfulness to her. The men whose wives completely surrender their personal right to control are the ones in whom is developed the lust for change, which leads to other associations. It is a psychological law that this violation of nature leads inevitably to ultimate repulsion and loss of love in both husband and wife. The only permanent attraction in any marriage is that between good in the man and truth in the woman. These two principles eternally attract each other. No couple can be bound together through middle life and old age, in sickness, trouble or financial disaster by physical attraction or sex love. When truth in a woman is held by good in a man, and when good in a man is brought out by truth in a woman, their love is from the eternal, and will endure to the eternities. Their marriage is based on the principle of the love of heaven, and the joys of the celestial life enter into their union in ever-increasing measure. No man can ever hold a woman's love by anything else than the attraction of the good that is in him. Physical perfection, or intellectual power or smartness may attract for a while, but they always end in repulsion if they are separated from good. And no woman can permanently hold a man's love by any other means than the attraction of truth. Mere goodness, or kindness, without truth will not answer. Many a shameless courtesan has a kind heart. Beauty and talent, separated from truth, ultimately become repulsive. And the woman who tries to attach her husband to her by cultivating his sex love is fostering and increasing the very passion which will ultimately lead him away from her. There is no real marriage but the union of good and truth. This is the essential basis of all creation, propagation and procreation. There can be no creation but through combination of these eternal powers. There has been much discussion of late concerning the increasingly large percentage of marriages which end in divorce, and it is proposed to revise the divorce laws so as to make it more difficult for ill-matched couples to get apart. I do not think divorce is so much an evil as a sign of evil, and I suggest that the trouble is not that it is too easy for ill-assorted couples to get apart, but that it is too easy for them to get together. A law which would require a public betrothal at least a year before a marriage license could be obtained would accomplish more toward promoting marital happiness than any amount of stringency in the divorce laws. A law which would require candidates for marriage to reach a certain standard of physical development and to pass an examination as to their knowledge of the sex relation would accomplish still more. The crying need of the hour is not for more repression of the ignorant and unfortunate, but for more enlightenment. Scientific Marriage Chapter 9. The Health of Women. Wallace D. Wattles. More than 75% of American women suffer from some form of invalidism or weakness of the generative system. The incalculable amount of misery and pain suffered by these unfortunates, the wrecked homes, overburdened husbands and weak children born of sickly mothers make a total of suffering appalling to contemplate. So universal is this condition that many people suppose it to be natural, and that because a woman is a woman she must necessarily be, to a greater or less extent, an invalid. This is a mistake. There is no reason why a woman should have more aches and pains than a man. No reason why she should not be as healthy and nearly as strong as a man. The cause of all this invalidism will be readily understood by those who read what follows. The activities of the average woman are not such as to bring into action the muscles of the trunk below the shoulders to any appreciable extent. Her work is all hand, arm and finger work. She may be fairly strong in the arms and legs, but her body is weak, relaxed and flabby. She wears a corset or tightly fitting waists which increase the weakness by taking the place of those muscles which support the body in an erect position. The consequence is a relaxation and giving away of the abdominal muscles, and a consequent prolapse or falling down of all the internal contents of the body. The right-hand figure in cut number 1 shows the natural female form, and you will readily understand that the internal organs can remain in their natural positions only so long as the muscular walls of the abdomen are strong and firm enough to hold them so. The other figure shows the outline when the weakened muscles have relaxed and allowed the contents of the body to fall. Cut number 2 shows the rasulanglantmaldals placement. If you look at it closely you will see that when the valanty musts relax and the walls of the belly give way, the pelvic VLSLLLLLL are pulled in 1.1 miscellaneous heap in the basin or basket fanned by the pelvic bones. The MB is pushed out of place by the weight of the bowels upon it. If you undle, ib, ILNS TH11T. This is nearly always the cause of tolling of the womb. UWLLL understand why the nostrums, applications and treatments or medical men always fall to a compulsory liqueur. The womb does not often become displaced unless it is pushed out of place by abdominal prolapse. In this Ntltlan there is pressure on the BL1. Wanda, C11 using inflammation, incontinence of urine, etc. On the rectum, musing pulse and constipation, PN. Is urine the arteries and veins, arresting the calculatlan and causing leukorrhea, ulceration, painful menstruation, tumors, cancers, ovarian LN1 tatlan in all catalogal disorders. They are all caused by abdominal prolapse. Women whose farms are like the natural ones in the cuts never suffer from them. The cure, and the only cure, MNSLSTS in removing the cause. Wattles 1JS. Is of women fumlature harvest for the practitioners of the jumble of fraud, superstition and error falsely called the stance al medicine. Fu, TLFDHS of the practice of the average doctor is among women, and the endless drugging, doctoring, treating, scraping, cauterizing, etc. accompany and nothing in the direction of cure and often increases the DLF culti 1.1 ND cause and death. Most of the Serglayalope-1 performed on women are usually as but delays which ought to land the perpetrators either in penal or redemptional institutions according to their motive. There is no science of medicine. The Admonstnutlan of Meddleton is in 99 cases out of 100 unscientific in principle and harmful in effect. Our medical colleges do not educate men in the truth about health and health. They perpetuate madly Lee 1111R and about 11 say and cure, and their graduates are armed with dangerous C 1111 RS healthier than helpful facts. No argument is needed to prove this to those who see the results of their practice among women. It is a slaughter of the innocents, a carnival of charlatanism. The real and certain cure for all these ailments is accomplished by so strengthening the muscles of the trunk as to correct the internal displacement and circulate free and unobstructed flow of the vital fluids, which is the essential process of life in every part of the body. And that strengthening of the muscles can only be accomplished by regular and properly directed exercise, persevered in until the increased flow of blood to the muscles and tissues used has restored normal strength and position. No better set of exercises can be devised, generally speaking, than those that are here described. Every woman ought, however, to have expert advice in beginning this work, in order to avoid overdoing the work, and obviate the possibility of doing harm by putting too much vigor into certain movements. These exercises should be taken immediately before retiring. Number 1. Lie flat on back, on the floor. Draw up the knees until the bottoms of the feet are flat on the floor. Now raise your hips as high as you can, and then let down upon the floor. Repeat until tired. This movement can do no harm. Practice it until you can raise the hips 50 times without fatigue. Number 2. Lie flat on stomach, on the floor, with hands under the forehead. Raise one leg backward as high as you can without bending the knee, except a very little at the highest point. Relax and repeat until tired. Same way with other leg. Practice until you can do it 50 times. Number 3. Lie flat on back, with hands clasped under head. Raise both legs, bending the knees a little, until they are straight up and then let down again to floor and completely relax. Repeat until tired. As you increase in flexibility and muscular control, bring the feet further over until you can touch the floor above your head with your toes. Practice until you can do it 50 times. The above 3 exercises may be taken by all women, and every pregnant woman ought to take them every day, not tiring herself too greatly, but making each movement until the effect is sensibly felt. Number 4. Sit on a stool, bench or box, or sidewise across a chair. Put your hands on your hips, and put your feet under some heavy article and bend backward until your head touches the floor. Practice until you can touch the floor on one side of the chair with your feet, and on the other side with your head. Do not try this alone at first. Let someone help you, and never do it more than 5 times at one sitting. Number 5. Lie flat on back, with legs extended straight upward. Slowly let legs spread apart toward the sides as far as possible, then bring together. Repeat until tired. The above exercises, faithfully persisted in, will be of immense benefit, and ultimately work a cure. Any woman who wishes special information concerning her case may write to the author, enclosing $1, and receive a letter of instruction and advice, with measurement blanks, etc., which will assist her to certain cure. I conduct a correspondence school of health, and am universally successful. If you are in trouble, and do not know what to do, write me. Beloved, the result of years of careful thought and study is in this little book. I know these things are true, for I have proved them. I hope the reading of it has helped you. If it has, I am well repaid for the lonely years of toil and struggle I have passed in seeking for the light. God bless you. May your life abound in the happiness which is the fruit of the union of good and truth. Amen.